Hello, everybody. Hopefully, someone will confirm that you can see and hear me. And I hope you're all doing well today. I'm sorry I missed getting to hang out with you last week. I wasn't feeling that great. Well, nothing serious, just, one of those brief things where you wonder if you ate something that was very bad. I see Quinny is there, and RoGR. I'm sure we'll see some more people. So I'm going to switch over to the other view. I think. Yes. But I do have to turn my light on. And actually, I'm going to turn the sound off for like just a second. All right, my apologies for that. I keep forgetting that the back of this chair hits the camera, so hopefully I still have it set up pretty well. There's about center. Okay. I have a rolling desk shelf unit thing that I put on the other side when I'm streaming so that I don't turn away from the camera or the microphone as much. So I'll take this off. And I don't know if you're about to hear Corbin yelling. We're trying to distract him, but it's not working very well. Hey, Mirror Par X and Green Users and Zachariah IM. Zachariah can hear me now. Fix the sound. Excellent. So let's move the light closer to where the miniature will be. So last week I was working on this guy and testing some color ideas, which I'm not sure I love. Like, I like it, but I don't know if it's what I would want to do the entire bust in. So I'm going to sit on that a little while. But there is something I'd sort of like to test with this. So I will often say if you paint something where the color's like close but not right there, like don't redo the whole thing. There are some things you can try before you have to take that step. And I thought this might be a good thing to try those on. But I would also like to try it on this guy. So I thought I would finish him up so that we can have an episode where we try tweaking colors. Because you can save a lot of time tweaking instead of completely repainting. So that was one test I did last week. It was actually two, and it ended up looking kind of similar. If you look very closely, this one is more of like a speckle or pointillism dot type of thing, and this one has little streak lines. And the colors were originally more different than they are now too. So I was testing two different colors as well. But over the course of the episode, which you can still watch here on Twitch, I ended up unifying it more. And then we had the experiment that didn't go as well. I was trying to make acrylic paints on a miniature behave the way, or closer, more like the way watercolor paints would behave on paper. And I tried an experiment using drying retarder, slow dry agent, and I would say that that experiment didn't particularly work, which is part of the reason I did it. And I wasn't super I thought it might work better than this, but I wasn't like expecting it to really be like, oh, this looks just like a lovely watercolor painting. But I thought it was worth trying on stream without my having tried it myself to practice, as it were, because I think it's valuable. Sometimes people get this idea that people they admire always know what to do. Like, if you come up with something, I want to paint this like it's a gold dragon, and that someone like me who's been doing this a while and teaches other people how to do it, I would just have an idea of how you do that, and it would be amazing and work, and everything's great. But when you have ideas and they don't work, and you try it, and then you just feel crummy about yourself because it must be that you don't know something, or that you're not good enough with the brush or whatever. And that's not really true. A lot of the times, the people that you admire are willing to make more mistakes and screw up and learn from those and iterate. So all those left brain things that you think make you not a real artist, you can totally put all of those skills to work improving things involving color and brush use and paint dilution and all of that kind of stuff. Even if you don't want to think about it as art, just think about it as craft. However, I know some people don't like to call miniature painting art, but your left brain skills are not useless here. You don't need to have intuition and magic artistic talent and all this stuff. A lot of what people who are good at this do is take risks and practice and try things and fail and learn from that, and that informs what they try to do the next time. So I know this doesn't work. If I really care about trying to make a watercolor effect, I take this as data. You know, I had a theory. I tested my theory. I have data. If I want to make a new theory and test that, I have more information than I started with. So I like to screw up on screen, basically, is what I'm saying, so that y'all know that that's part of the process. Which is the same with, like, I'm not 100% happy with these colors. Instead of just going straight to painting with different colors, I'm like, okay, what if we could just... Because what if you'd painted a whole cloak or something? And you're like, it's clothes, but it's not quite what I want. You can do stuff. You don't have to repaint everything. So this guy, if you weren't here around Halloween, he was painted. It's my tradition for a Halloween miniature to paint in a monochromatic color scheme, which is, you know, like I did black and white TV one year, and like a ghostly blue greeny color one year, and I thought I would try sepia tone this year, and I didn't bring his friend. These guys are sold in a 2-pack. There's a gravedigger, and then this is his assistant who carries the coffins. And let me just roll back. I'm just gonna go get it so I can show you the other one. And mess up the camera again, because that's what I do. So this is the first one I tried, which probably is closer to a sepia tone, but there were some warmer photographs that I saw, and it turns out that the actual sepia ink from squids can vary based on where those squids live. So Leonardo's drawings are in an ink more like this. Photographs are probably somewhere in between there, because they were trying to make them look warmer than just straight black and white. That was part of what the process was meant to do. So I didn't love working with these colors, although I like him better now that I've been away from the process for a little while. And I think I overcorrected and went too warm here. But again, had I done this and then I finished, do I have to repaint it with different colors? Or is there something we can do to just tweak these colors to look closer to, you know, to be not quite as vibrant and, you know, reddish brown or whatever? Let's find out. So that is what I want to do today. So Green Users is saying the problem is knowing how to fix things. I assume you mean paint things, because you know how to fix plenty of sculpting things. And yes, practice is a big part of the process, but not just doing the same thing over and over again. So the practice makes perfect saying kind of misses out on the intentional practice, directed practice, which is the idea that, all right, I tried this, it didn't quite work. What can I tweak a little? Do I need a little more water in my paint? Do I need a little less water in my paint? Do I need to have more steps between my layer colors? So practice with the idea of iterating on what you're doing until it starts working better. And if, you know, for brush precision, practice can be just kind of practice. But even there, it's like I found a bunch of ways around having to paint really precisely. And I think I learned that brush precision a lot later than most people who come to miniature painting do, because I was coming up with all these tricks and tweaks so I wouldn't have to do that, I guess. Does Reaper have a sepia liner or ink? There is a sepia liner. There's a brown ink that might be kind of sepia-ish. That I might actually be able to reach. I have the super washes, but I also took the inks out as well. So yes, let's look at the wash. There's a flesh wash that's probably a little too brown if you want more of a look like this. So it's closer to that guy. It's already close to that guy. These are, but there's this one. Yeah, the brown wash, I think, is a lot, you know, it's kind of in between these, and I think it would work well for kind of a sepia look. The one called sepia is a little lighter in value, so you would probably need to do this and then maybe even like the steel or the black wash. Well, that's the black ink. The black wash to do your darkest recesses. Because one thing I noticed when I was doing this, and I think this video should be available on YouTube now. I meant to watch it, and then it was a busy weekend. It didn't happen. But one thing I learned in comparison to the photos, which don't have true white and don't have true black in them, is that for miniature purposes, because we need that extra contrast, because they're small, that I did have to be willing to go, you know, have a few little places with darkest dark and potentially a few little places with lightest light colors. So that's brown wash, that's sepia wash. For whatever reason, I don't have brown ink over here. I'm still not, like, I'm not a person who enthusiastically recommends traditional inks. Like if you get acrylic inks, I'm not 100% sure which that is. And then that's steel wash. I think those are all of them. This, if you have the super washes, the bone shadow is a color that's like closer to that guy. So if you base this in more of like a light bone, not like super yellowy cream, but like a tan with just a little bit of cream in it. So these are too yellowy, what I have here. I'm not thinking of any exact names at the moment, but I think you know the kind of color I mean. You could probably get something similar to this with like the one coat approach. But if you want it just a little warmer, which I'd say this is actually the photographs that I liked, I'd say this is pretty close to the kind of color that the photographs I liked had. And then this looks more like, you know, Da Vinci's ink. Da Vinci's ink, the pictures I've seen, it looks even redder, but certainly it is possible that in the intervening, you know, centuries, the color of that, since it comes from a natural source inks are not always the most light fast. I believe these are the colors that I used to paint this guy because I left them out for this purpose, but I'm not like 100% sure because I couldn't, for some reason I was looking for the video on Twitch and now I realize that it would have been on YouTube, but oh well. So I had muddy soil. I feel like I had walnut black too, but I think I couldn't find my walnut brown is what happened when I was painting these. Chris from Lancaster, the difference in good and awesome mini painters is just patience to actually fix all the little mistakes. It's patience, really. Dip there, a little there. I mean, patience is a huge bit of it. Just even the conceptual willingness to go back and like, okay, I think it's done, but I'm going to take 10 minutes and clean up an errant brushstroke here or darken a little shadow there or whatever. So it doesn't have to be, even just doing that can take a tabletop job and knock it up a little. If you're doing a display thing, that process could be a couple of hours instead of 10 minutes. So when I'm doing a display thing, I will usually take a photograph and I will zoom in and I'll be like, okay, what am I seeing, you know, at different ranges? So like kind of just okay, here's the whole miniature and then start zooming in. What am I seeing in terms of mistakes? What am I seeing in terms of there's not enough contrast here or this part isn't kind of, you know, calling out the way I thought it would. Do I need to add a little more variation to something over here? That kind of thing. And why did I choose muddy soil? What an excellent question. Because I try not to choose. The X means that this paint is discontinued, and I try not to choose those colors, but certainly there are other dark browns in the Reaper line. There are many. So I'm just going to mix. Basically, you want to have value scale from lightest to darkest, and that's one of the values, haha, of working with a monochromatic color scheme, is that it's a way to force yourself to focus on value, which is kind of like one of our most important kinds of contrast in terms of distinguishing what's what on a figure and making things stand out and all those kind of things. So yes, the darker shadows, lighter highlights thing, but also just across the miniature as well. Like I really tried to not have anything that was too close in my steps directly adjacent to one another. And then I tried to create maximum contrast by having one of the lightest areas be next to what's going to be one of the darkest areas. So the contrast over the surface area of the miniature is also an important kind of contrast that I don't think we talk enough about in miniature painting, because it's absolutely true that we need to do the darker shadows, brighter highlights thing. That's almost always true forever. But it is also very helpful, especially if you're not going to do that. Like if you are using washes and other time-saving measures to paint a bunch of miniatures fast, doing this kind of thing helps you with a lot of visual impact and clarity on the table and stuff without having to spend contest level amounts of time on stuff. And in fact, it's important for contest level too, and I'm very bad at doing this usually, so I was trying to do it. Because the problem with color is we have one tool to do like 4 different things. So color establishes the mood, color matches the character type, color does all this visual stuff that helps the viewer look at it. It's like sometimes those are contradictory. If I want to paint a ninja or something, it's got to be all dark, so then where's my contrast? That's the problem you get into. And I feel like I did not use that one, but who knows? Who knows what I did? I mean, someone knows because the video's out there, but that someone is not me. When we first started doing these videos, and this was like way back when we could only do video when we went to Reaper and they had the studio set up. Justin would like film us and then edit it later and stuff. I would watch those videos and be like, I don't remember any of that. I don't remember saying this. I don't remember this happening. It's like, it just was sort of a blur because you're trying to think of so much. You're trying to make sure the miniature stays in camera and that you're talking loud enough and that you're being clear, and it's all these things. And the first few times you do it, if you're not someone who's inherently good at that kind of thing or had previous training, it's a lot. And I would watch these videos going, well, I didn't know I was going to say that. Interesting. This does not match my memory of these events at all. So some of these paints, especially these ones that have a lot of white in them, just seem a little thick. Like I don't typically thin all the time. What I'm looking for is when I do that, does the like wake fill back in? So unless I'm doing a technique like glazing or washes where I need the paint to be more transparent, I want the paint to be as opaque as possible, and I only add water as needed. This may be too many. I'm gonna test that one. Since I didn't have to mix it, I still want to test the consistency. Christopher Lancaster used to live in Wichita Falls, Texas, which is near the Reaper store, I'm guessing. Although, I suppose in Texas, near is a very relative term. It's a different scale to most places. And then these are very potently dark colors. Like, apparently I did not need as much black as I put in there. Or muddy soil. That was the muddy soil. I think I missed it in between. We'll just put a little more muddy soil in here. There, fixed it. So this is similar to what I do if I'm layering. I'm just looking for, like I'm going up steps. And it's not how many drops is in anything. It's visually speaking, is there a big jump between here and here and here and here? And there may be jumps that are too big on here. I don't know. I haven't messed around with it yet. Sometimes I get it right by eye, and sometimes I don't. So, what parts of him are left to paint is an excellent question. Let's take a look. As falls Wichita, so falls Wichita Falls, says Zachariah. All right. So his pants and his bracer, arm glove things, and then mostly just details, I think. So all right, let's do some pants, which look like approximately dark. I've moved my brushes all around, so let's hope that I'm going to find the ones that I need. Which I'm not sure that is, but for like 20 years now or something, 18 years, I don't know, many years, I've been meaning to develop a system where I mark which one of my Winsor Newton brushes is like my current, this is the best one for doing details and layering and all that kind of stuff, and then the ones that have been kind of bumped down to the second string to do rougher stuff. I keep meaning to make some kind of visual system where I like paint on the ends of the handles or something. But instead I choose not to do that, so that I have to find, here's all the size 1 brushes in my cup, and then point them and see which one has the best and longest point. Because making my life easier is a thing that I'm very super bad at. I was listening to something interesting actually at lunch. There's this, I'm trying to remember his name, or the name of the YouTube channel, but there's this guy, he's on Twitch actually, and then he just archives the videos on YouTube. It's like, he's a psychiatrist, but his audience, like the audience he's kind of directing things to, are video gamers. So he tries to talk about things in terms that, gamers would understand, and he answers questions and kind of does general, here's how your brain works that way, or why you suck at this, or whatever. So he's talking about why we're bad at building consistent habits and doing things that we know we should be doing, kind of thing. And he was talking about he also studied as a monk in India before he became a doctor, I believe. So he kind of mixes, Eastern philosophy and meditation concepts with psychiatry and here's how your brain works concepts. It's an interesting mix. But he's talking about this idea of the yogis, I believe one particular group at least, that you aren't like just one person forever. You're like a different person every day. And that's kind of why stuff doesn't work great for you sometimes, because today person will make the decision that they're not going to do something and make that tomorrow person's problem. And then either tomorrow person is stuck doing something miserable, or that version of you punts things along, and so on. So it's hard to build good habits because you're always kind of living in the moment. And do I remember why I started telling this story? What an excellent question. But I've been kind of trying to use that concept a little bit, like make choices that make life easier on tomorrow me instead of harder on tomorrow me. 2 stripes means second string. No stripe is new. 3 stripes is third string. That could work. I thought about, like, if I paint it white when it's new, then another color can go over it, and then another color could go over that. So like one example of the, you know, trying to be kind to tomorrow you the same way you would to um, like a guest or something is I try to clean my kitchen now before I go to bed every night. I mean, at least, you know, just get the dishes out of the sink, wipe down the counters. Because it is really nice to wake up and not have all that stuff. So even though it's tedious and I don't always want to do it, I'm like, I'm tired and I want to go to sleep. I'm like, but future me will really appreciate if I do this. And he was saying one of the reasons that it can be tough to make those choices is if you don't particularly like yourself, which, you know, fair. I can see the point of that. But if you're not really you tomorrow, that kind of helps. Like you aren't you. You aren't being nice to horrible you. You're being nice to this brand new version of you that doesn't exist yet. That could be a wonderful person. So how would you prepare your home or your body or your desk or your car or whatever for the guest you that is showing up tomorrow to take over? And maybe that will make it easier to make some good choices. I don't know. I'm trying. I'm not necessarily succeeding, but I'm trying. I am happy with the kitchen thing. As tedious as that sounds, that, you know, one of my biggest accomplishments in life is that I clean the kitchen almost every day now. Woohoo, go team me. Use walnutty, the walnut substitute for that for now, I think. Just keep that black in my back pocket for when I need it. But yes, so if I took the time to mark my brushes like that, I would be doing tomorrow painter me a favor. You know, if I was today's guest painter, but I knew someone else was coming tomorrow, would I want to leave 3 cups of unsorted brushes for my replacement? That's not very polite to the person who's taking over my job tomorrow. Not sure I went a little too far over to the right. But will I do that? Probably not right away, because just you can't do everything at once, and I have some higher priority things on my list. We're trying to take care of some of the big messes in our lives. And then I'm assuming that a lot of you had the fun with snow thing for a few weeks there. Because, you know, it was over so much of the country. Zachariah says, future me is my friend, not my frenemy. And Pendrake says, by stripe, I'm thinking ring around the handle like a kill ring on a tank's gun barrel. Zachariah did stripe rings on the brushes on the handle to find them quickly, avoid confusing them with someone else's at conventions. Oh, that's a good idea. I put tape on once. I had colorful electrician's tape, and that was a bad idea because when it started to come off, now they're sticky and it makes me crazy. So I could very quickly identify my brushes in classes and grab the ones that I had loaned out, but then I never wanted to touch those brushes, and I'm sure that other people felt the same way. Did you use just regular miniature paint, or like did you have to do something special? Because this lacquer seems pretty, you know, slippery. Not all brush handles have the same kind of lacquer, but the handles of the brushes I most need to mark do have that very, I mean, it's great. It's very sturdy. I don't think I've ever had paint chip off the handle of one of these brushes. But I was assuming that might make it slightly paint hydrophobic. Alright, so what do I want for his pants? Just going to put a little... You don't need to think about his codpiece so much from the back, I think. Zachariah also tried scoring the handle gently before doing the paint so it was sitting in a recess. Oh, see, I'd be reluctant to do that because that's just, the lacquer keeps the water out. And keeping the water out is good. And I know you would think, do I need to keep the water out here? But I do when I'm actively using a brush or when I've washed it and dried it, I put it down like that. So there might be water on my desk. Because then, if you put it like this, the water can, and paint, especially if you're actively painting, can run into the ferrule and it's harder to get out there. So I like to keep them like this until they're dry, and then I put them in cups like that. But it is not infrequent that there's just water on my desk in various places. So I would be a little bit concerned about that. But I will try some paint. Maybe I'm just not giving paint enough credit for, it stuck to that temperature. And the other, I tried a couple other like pre-painted plastic figures. I wanted to make another video on that topic for the people on my Patreon. And I'd already tested and started to paint the Christmas tree ornaments, so I grabbed a little guy from one of those blind collectible boxes, and I had a couple of the same figure, and I was like, okay, this paint seems very, like that, like it's not gonna, I bet it's not gonna take the paint straight up, or definitely not gonna take the paint thin down to wash consistency. And nope, it was just like the temperature. It did fine. I was pretty impressed. I still believe that you probably do have to test every plastic thing you might want to do that with, because they're all made differently. But it is intriguing to learn that it might be possible to enhance the paint on more things than I thought, instead of having to do like a complete repaint, which is a commitment. Just slapping some washes on something is a different equation than, trying to remove factory paint or having to prime over it and start from scratch. That's a lot. I won't necessarily do that much work. Even tomorrow me, in my imagination, might not do that much work. Just using this pretending it's walnut color to darken up a few of the darkest areas. So I want to keep these pants brown, or the slightly lighter brown. I don't want them to be as dark as the casket or coffin. I know I read the difference, and I am not currently recalling the difference between a coffin and a casket. I bet one of you knows. Because, I mean, a good GM should know that, I guess, right? Seems like something a good GM should know. Zachariah thinks they used white primer so that it will grip better, and didn't have any problems with water getting in because the paint, the newly applied paint, sealed the recess. All right, I'm just going to check something really quick to see. I have pictures of the finished temperature. What I can't remember is if I put any of those pictures on my phone. And I did not. I will do that for next week. He's all packed away now with the Christmas decorations. But I did buy a second one of the big temperature, because now I do feel like I have to spruce that one up too. Like the big guy with the light up flame can't be less fancy than the cheapo plastic guy. I mean, that's just weird. So I will probably paint more temper toads later. And I don't necessarily think that I will wait till Christmas because there's like zero Christmassy about that miniature. They didn't like slap a bow on it or anything. And it can sit on a desk or a shelf and be an all year round decoration, in my opinion. Hallmark isn't the boss of me. I mean, they clearly have my number. They realize that nerds will buy their crap. But normally we try not to look, but I got suckered in this year. I mean, just because there are plenty of decorations on our tree. It's not that I have a problem with the concept of nerd decorations or anything, or more nerd decorations. It's that we have plenty. I decided that I have these 2 bins and that we may not exceed the amount of the 2 bins. So when I put decorations away this year, I picked some out to not be ours anymore, which is a concept. So the big project we're working on for why I'm not spending a bunch of time fixing problems like brushes is decluttering our house. And there's an idea called the container concept that is very helpful, which is you kind of, overall, your house is ultimately a container and it will accommodate only so many things. But then within that, you can decide like, okay, this is the drawer that I keep all my sculpting supplies in. This is the space that I'm willing to allocate to, the amount of paint or brushes or whatever. And anything other than that, you pick out your favorites, and anything that didn't make the cut, you give away or sell or whatever. In fact, I had some miniature things that I had set aside, and I learned that a friend of ours is starting to miniature paint, and I'm like, well, let me hook you up with my extra wet palette and some paints I don't need and some brushes I don't need. And I didn't give her miniatures because I thought she was learning to paint board games. And I said, also, if you want miniatures, like, come over and I'll let you pick from a selection of ones that, I'm not as attached to. And then you can have what you want, because I don't want to do to someone else what I'm trying to undo to myself and just like shift all my stuff and make it somebody else's problem. That was actually one of the things I thought was pretty cool about Marie Kondo's book, is that she talks about not doing that. Like, don't just force your stuff on some friend or family member so that you don't feel like because you do that because then you don't feel like you're throwing it out. You feel like someone's still getting use out of it. It wasn't a waste of you spending money or whatever, but you're really just making it somebody else's problem. And I don't want to be that guy. Zachariah says, the neck stretching exercise you showed us on stream a while back has saved my neck, so thank you very much. You're talking about chin tucks, I think, where you like kind of push your chin back, like straight back. I'll show it on the camera in a minute. You can also do it lying down. That's actually how the PT people had me do it, although I've seen other videos with PT people who do it when you're standing up. But I think because then you're pushing against something, it's kind of like is it isometric exercise where you're pushing against things, and you can do it in other directions too. So you can hold your hand to the side of your head and then like push to the right and push to the left to strengthen other areas of your neck as well. But yeah, I'm chin tucks for life. Like I have to do that several times a day, and it helps keep things from going haywire. I mean, I have to do some other exercises and stuff, and I'm having a few problems right now because I had kind of been slacking on doing all my PT stuff, so I need to get back in the rhythm. We had kind of a little mini board game convention this weekend, which is a lot of sitting and not a lot of doing things that your back likes. But it was perfect weather for it. I will say that. It was just rainy, foggy, dreary. Like if you were not just gonna go inside and sleep, playing board games was like the next best thing. I mean, video games would have been good too. If you wanted to do that. But hey, I'm just happy that the snow finally melted. We were inside for 9 days, I think, in the end. And then on the 10th day, we left and took Corbin to the vet. So poor guy, he was like, he just hates the snow because he wants to go outside, but he hates the snow. And he was, by the end, he was driving us pretty crazy. It's like, because he thinks we can fix things, right? I mean, we can open doors, we can open cat food cans. Surely we're magical people who could fix the weather if we wanted to. So he just had to convince us that we wanted to fix the weather by yelling a lot. And we can't actually fix the weather. So that did not turn out great for any of us. He would make us open doors several times a day and prove to him that the snow was still there. He was like, dude, the snow is still there. Either go put the snow on your precious little feet or just wait until it's gone. But I kind of felt bad for him because the day it finally was gone, he was supposed to have his vet appointment during the time that we couldn't leave the house, and they had gotten rescheduled to the first day. The weather wasn't too terrible. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, Corb. But it was interesting taking a cat to the vet that like the vet isn't super annoyed by dealing with, because I have not had that experience for a while. Archer, they called him a 2-minute cat at our old vet. You had exactly 2 minutes, if not less, to get him out of the carrier, do a thing, and get him back in the carrier before he realized what was going on and just completely lost his mind. One time the vet tech was like, oh, I'm sure he's not like this at home. I'm sure he's very nice at home. And I'm like, he's totally like this at home. He's just not like this all the time. Sometimes he is great. But sometimes he's exactly like this at home. We just love him anyway. We have chosen to accept him for who he is, in all his demonic glory, and love him anyway. And then Ella was not mean, but she had very strong feelings about being held down and restrained and having anything medical-ish done to her, or even not medical-ish, because she'd had a lot of problems when she was a little kitten, and she was just done with all of that. So she would just wiggle until people were scratched in their attempts to, hold her still long enough to do the whatever. All right, let's highlight these pants and see. I suspect that this is too big a jump, but let's find out. Let's find out. So now the consequence of the snow is just that all of our packages are messed up. And it's like hilariously messed up because the notifications and updates are just like, okay, sure. Because every day during the snowstorm, it would be like, oh, we'll be delivering this tomorrow. It's like, no, you won't. I can't get out of my street. You can't get onto my street. You will not be delivering anything. But I have one thing I'm expecting from Amazon, and they call it a package. And then they're also like throwing in we have kitty litter on subscription, and they're saying that's part of it too. So we got home from our little, day of playing board games, and there was a box on the porch, and it was like just the saddest looking box that had been crushed, and there was like one whole corner had come out, and they fixed it with tape, and it was like, well, that's very promising. And we open it, and there are like 2 of the 8 things in there. And it's like, and they still say it's pending and that they haven't delivered this package yet. And it's like, okay, does that mean it was multiple boxes and that the other stuff's coming? Because everything except the kitty litter was smaller than that hole, so I'm pretty sure that a bunch of that stuff is not actually on the way. It is on the floor of some warehouse somewhere. But you keep saying that. And then we had another package that was just one envelope. It's a potato masher. Very excited. This is my exciting middle-aged life. I had to order away for potato masher because I couldn't find one that was made of plastic to not wreck non-stick pans. So I'm like, I found my potato masher. I was very excited. Then it got dropped in the snow. And that arrived, but when I go look at it on Amazon, it says this package is probably lost and click here and we'll send you another one. It's like, well, I'm not going to because you really did send me one. You sent me one. It's great. I haven't mashed any potatoes yet, but I'm sure it'll be fine. What about the stuff that I think is actually missing? Could you put that little button on there? But my favorite is we have meal services and they are trying to deliver the box from, I don't know, January 10th or something. And it's like, please don't. Please just throw out the rotted box of food and save us all. Finally, it got marked pending instructions, which I guess is pending instructions from the sender, because I can't find a button to say that is gross. Please throw that out instead of making everything in the warehouse smell like rotting food. But I'm waiting on lights too, actually. Zachariah's, the new light box I just got was delayed by 5 days, showed up in 2. And something due today is delayed until Friday, in theory. I expect to find it on the porch tonight. Yeah, it's the main reason it's weird is like, okay, these tracking systems are presented to us and seem like they're very exact. So it's like, I don't have any problem with things being delayed. Like, that was a massive weather situation over huge parts of the country. I'm not fussed that I'm not getting, 2-day prime delivery or whatever. Totally reasonable not to be happening. But like, how come all the tracking is so messed up? How come you don't actually know that this stuff is just sitting somewhere in a warehouse and you're just literally making stuff up now to tell me? That's the part I'm confused about. And this is UPS. This isn't USPS. I don't have many complaints about USPS. I don't want to make it as rough as the shirt because, I put all that texture there. And then if I just put a bunch of texture here, it like kind of dilutes the effect if everything has the same texture. So I just want to make it kind of rough looking, but not as worn. I mean, it'd be 2 things. It wouldn't be the end of the world, but just that is a principle that it took me a while to learn. I used to try to make everything super smooth, and not everything, not every surface texture is super smooth. Rocks and stuff, not super smooth. So I was kind of working against myself by not exploring texture more. To be fair, this was long enough ago that texture overall was not as big a thing as it is now. Texture is very, very hotness now. But the other thing that's delayed, if you were here a few weeks ago and you heard me complaining about my husband put in new lights and now I can't see anything, he finally found correct lights to order, and those have been, 1 arrived today. 1 out of 3 light bulbs. Again, is it 2 separate packages? The box did look like it had some situation, so were there originally more light bulbs in there and some fell out? Or are there really 2 light bulbs in another package? Who knows? Tracking doesn't. But eventually we'll find out. Because it really bugs me now to have more light in here. It's fine for, like, painting is fine because I have a very bright lamp directly above my head right now. So that is fine. Hopefully it's illuminating him well for you all too. Got some bars I can move. So it doesn't actually bother me when I'm painting miniatures. It's like when I'm doing everything else. I'm trying to fill out my date book or just read stuff. Just walking around the room even. It seems like how it used to look when I would turn it down at night to start winding down to go to sleep. It's like, so it makes me feel like it's late and I'm sleepy. It's upsetting to me because it's also very yellow. I mean, it's not as yellow as it was because I have some control over that now. The first lights he put in were just like very much no from me. They were super yellow. It's like traveling back to the 70s. But now I can control the temperature of the lights a bit, even if I can't control the brightness. But I realize what the problem is so my studio is what would normally be the master bedroom, and there's just one central light fixture. So if you get any distance away from that, you are getting a lot less light. Pendrick ordered 2 jugs of milk from Walmart, 96-ounce jugs. I ended up with 6 half-gallon cartons as substitute, 64 ounces each carton. Maths are difficult. Well, I've noticed that when we do the pickup thing, like you order the groceries and then you go sit in the parking lot and they bring it to your car. And when they have to do substitutions, they usually do it in your favor. So it was great. We did this at the beginning of the pandemic, and I'd run out of maple syrup. And I'm from Canada. I like the good stuff. I want legitimate maple syrup. And they were out of that, so they just brought me like a huge container from some other brand. I had maple syrup. I think we only ran out of it like 6 months ago. Like, well, I got the better of that deal. That was what was really weird about the snow too, is we placed a grocery order. Like I expected snow, but I've gotten so... I feel like the Weather Channel kind of cries wolf a lot. Like they name every storm and they go on about how everything's going to be so horrible. So generally when there's snow here, it'll last for a couple of days and then it gets warm and then it melts and everything's fine. So I believe them about the snow. I just didn't believe them about the severity of the cold, I guess. So we like kind of planned, but we didn't go nuts. We didn't go full southern, time to make milk sandwiches, run around crazy buying stuff. But we had to, it was like around the time we needed to make a grocery order anyway. And in all of this time, since the pandemic, when I've been ordering these things from Kroger, this was like the order that they had to make. Like there was one thing, they had to substitute one kind of green grapes for another kind of green grapes. And other than that, everything else was in stock. There wasn't substitutions. I received everything else I ordered. And I'm like, well, this is an unusual experience that I've not had before. And it was just so surprising because my husband did end up running in to get some more stuff for the cat, I think. And it was like a madhouse in there. People just running around buying all the milk and whatnot. Pendrake, time to make a maple pie. Yeah, I'm not a pie maker. Every once in a while, I'll do Christmas cookies. And that's about it. And only like 1 or 2 of the cookies that I make are even traditional family recipes. I just looked up a bunch of other stuff that I like on the internet. Alas, my husband and I like completely different cookies. So I'm like, that makes it more effort. I can't just make like one batch and everybody's happy. But I like the ones with nuts, or like you put jam in the middle or something. And he likes just the boring sugar cookies that you're supposed to put frosting all over. And then the ones where it's like peanut butter and then you stick a Reese's Kiss in the middle. Peanut butter blossoms. Something like that. And I'm not really a fan of those either. I rarefied cookie taste, I guess. Well, I don't want to go much lighter on those because then they're going to stop seeming dark. I mean, that sounds dumb, but that is what I mean by that. I do want there to not be a little white spot right there. Or right there. Where these are the holes of the belt that I did not get primer in. Or I did not get the base coat in. I guess I got primer in. But he's got that little cod piece, and he's also got a patch on his knee. And some repairs. So we need to make those a little more obvious, I think. And these are things where it does get a little tougher in a monochromatic scheme, because if I put a light blue patch or red or something green, some color like that, that would really pop against the reddish brown and drive home the point that these are, patched, wrecked up pants. But since all I have is this value range, all I can do is make it a value that is different than the pants. And hope that is enough. I mean, I could paint a little pattern on there too. Could I? Yeah, sure, maybe. Once that part's dry. Actually, I want to accentuate the tear and maybe the stitching holes before I do the actual stitching as a lighter color. Is there a stitch there? Yes, I think there is. What would he have been repairing his pants with? I'm going to say something stripy. There was not enough difference between that one and that one to see at a smaller scale. So can I make his knee be more in focus? He's so, like, if you look at him, the distance between there and there is different, and the camera is incorrectly choosing what to focus on. Can I cover over his face and make it happen? That does not change the distance things are from the camera, but give it a shot. But then on the other hand, I can only paint stripes accurately in that orientation. So it can be helpful to building that brush control to kind of just pick the way you find most comfortable to paint, which for me is pulling the brush towards myself, and move the miniature instead of your hand, which is okay for my painting, but not as great for the camera, maybe. But we'll see. So I decided it was easier to start in the center and then try to leave an even space between them than starting in one side. I don't know if that was correct or not, but it seemed logical. Isn't that how they do tiling? I'm trying to remember now. And should I go ahead and make it crisscrossy even? Or this is more like maybe he used a bed sheet, and that's kind of fun. But I can still do a little bit of shading and highlighting within this. To kind of indicate that some of it's on the upper knee and some of it's on the lower knee. I feel like I lost that one stripe now. I guess it might have looked interesting if the stripes weren't exactly parallel with the edges of the material, because you know, if you were cutting out a rough patch, you might not have done it that way, but here we are. And for the cod piece, I think I want the belts to be the darker color, so I don't want to do that. I guess it's more of an athletic cup in a way, I suppose. Since it looks like it has rivets and everything, I think he's just trying to protect stuff. You know, when you're flinging those coffins around, accidents can happen. But next time they think there's going to be a long snow, I may go ahead and pick up just a few more frozen vegetables or something. Since we had the power outage in the summer, or earlier last year, I don't remember when exactly, we did not have a big reserve of frozen food anymore. Well, now I feel like it's too prominent, but I suppose it is what it is. Just get the little rivet hole. I'm not going to do the belt yet. I'm going to go to these. Did I work on those some? I don't know. I can kind of see like some work on the texture, but I'm not completely, so I'm not sure. If I did, I can do enough. I'll do a little more. Make a wash. But I will test my wash. It's almost time for a new wash testing paper, I guess. Close enough. I will not use my nice brush for the wash though. But yeah, the whole 9 days of snow, can't go anywhere thing kind of put my timetable on some stuff behind. So we had to get ready for this little mini convention on the weekend, but we had been filling our car full of stuff to take to Goodwill because of doing the decluttering thing. So we had to take all the Goodwill stuff out of the car, and now it's just sitting around my living room, being like the opposite of decluttering. And now we have to undo all that. And then there was a garbage problem too. So I've been, in addition to kind of the decluttering of the stuff we need to do, there's this, I mean, there's more than one version of this, but it's a Facebook group I'm on called Declutter 365. And it's like they give you a 15-minute task, supposedly, every day, so that you're just doing like a little bit. So it'll be like the junk drawer in the kitchen or the medicine chest, something like that. Which is great. And January is the kitchen. And I haven't managed to make it through the whole year before, but I have done the kitchen part a couple of times, and it was very helpful. And, like, sometimes you buy, like, gadgets or whatever that you don't use, or you've got too many mugs, and it forced me to deal with those situations, and my kitchen became more efficient and pleasant to use. But the downside of them doing the kitchen is they got to the pantry, and it was like, okay, so throwing out the expired food and whatever, and then the garbage company is like, yeah, we're not taking your garbage for ages. So we just had like all this garbage. And then I was supposed to start doing the fridge, and I'm like, okay, well, nope, I'm not going to do the things with the fridge and the freezer because that's just going to make stinky garbage. But they did finally take our garbage, so we can work on that. But that was another schedule thing that it put me behind on. I can see some wetness there still. The main thing that's left to do other than these last little leather parts is the non-metallic metal. And I kind of want to just focus on that. We could do his little fingernails though, I think. Fingernails and toenails, I think, are sculpted. Although I have done this, like a similar technique. Maybe we can get his hand to be in focus. It's like the camera knows this is a face, so it wants to pay attention to it being a face. So you kind of get like a darker color to establish the nail bed. So it's working with me a bit, and I've thinned it down some because there is sculpted information there. If I was creating these fingernails and they weren't sculpted, I would use thicker paint. So similar concept, I'd be putting this darker color down first. And it might even need to be a darker color than I did. You just want to make sure you don't go like onto this part of the finger. You want to keep it just at the top. Let's see if it'll be a little more obvious to see. He's got this big toenail right there. And I'm not worrying about if it's getting onto the nail part. This is one of those laziness things that I would do instead of having brush precision. I mean, even now I still think it would be nutty to do it the other way. So I'm not. And then you take the lighter color and just leave a little bit of that edge showing. If I were using a color range instead of just a value range, I might make this like a little grayer or something instead of just straight skin tone to look a little different. But you don't want it to look like radically different than the skin tone unless you're painting nail polish, of course. And I just don't get the impression that this guy is a nail polish kind of person. He does not have that kind of time in his life. So here I might need to go a little lighter. If I recall correctly, I did vary the value of the skin tone a little bit as I went up the body. This is getting a bit gunky. Perhaps it is. You guys have been very quiet now. Did no one look up the difference between a coffin and a casket, or did I miss it? I mean, in the event that one of you doesn't already just know, which honestly, I'm surprised if you don't. It seems like something that gamers would know. And there, the hand is even lighter, so I will go up in value again. His blood flow is not great, so I don't mind his nails looking a little creepy. A little creepy is kind of what I want. Coffin, you can remove the lid and caskets are hinged. I wasn't sure which he was carrying, but now that you say that, there are hinges, so now we know. He does have a casket. You can also do non-nipple nipples in a similar way. He has sculpted nipples, but if you don't, you can kind of do a similar thing to how the fingernails are. Which mainly just comes up with if you're painting something to look like transparent cloth and the sculpt has been done in such a way to look like thicker cloth so that nipples aren't visible. Occasionally you have to do non-nipple nipples. Oh, wait, I jumped ahead. I need to do some dry brushing or something on there. Just trying to decide if it'd be quicker to not dry brush. Sometimes it is, but we will give it a shot. I don't have, oh, maybe did I? Is this smaller? Yeah, it's smaller. So this is a makeup brush, and this one is one of the Army Painter dry brushes that, like 1 million years ago when this show started, we tested those on camera, and I believe that video is not on YouTube because I think there were technical difficulties, as there were often in the early days of my show. Issue Burden KS jumped on late. Did you start this mini this afternoon? I did not, actually. I painted the skin, the vest, and a couple other parts like the week after Halloween, I think. And the video should be archived on Reaper's YouTube channel. And it's using a monochromatic scheme, so it's like the same, instead of black to white, it's supposed to be more of a sepia tone. So I can only work with value, really. I can't, suddenly add green or something like that. And I wanted to finish it, for a couple reasons. One, to finish it, but I feel like this was my first attempt at a sepia tone color scheme, which I didn't enjoy painting it. I don't think it looks as terrible now in terms of the end result. But when I went back and looked at sepia photographs again, I felt like they were a bit warmer than that. So I was trying to come up with an alternate color scheme for this guy, and I think I overcorrected and went too far in the warm. But sometimes when we have color things that didn't turn out exactly how we want, there are things that I would try before I would just say, okay, it didn't turn out how I want. Now I have to repaint everything and make it closer to like how I wanted it. There are things kind of in between that and, in between repainting and just living with it. So I want to try some of those things on this figure to tone down, to make it closer to how a sepia tone photograph looks. But to try those things, I have to finish painting him so that there's the surface to experiment with. So I thought I would do that today, because I also have this color I was testing on a dragon was from not last week, but the weeks before stream, which is still here on Twitch to watch again if you want. And I like this color, but it doesn't appear natural enough to me, like something that a natural creature, which, obviously dragon is fantastical and I can make it whatever color I want. And a different dragon, I might be like, oh, that's perfect, and I don't mind. But just the nature of that sculpt made me want to do something that was a little more naturalistic, like still fantastic, but naturalistically fantastic, which is how Julie sculpts. She sculpts imaginary creatures in a very naturalistic way. So I want to make paint choices that are going to work with the sculpt. And I'm not 100% sure that I feel like those ones did. So I want to tweak those colors too. So I kind of want to have a tweaking colors stream one Monday afternoon. But that is one of those tasks where it's like you have to have stuff done to show how you change the done stuff. So I have to create some canvases for those experiments. And that is what I'm working on today. Also, this guy's just fun. He's just fun. I should finish up this friend too. There I definitely would have to go back to the video because I do not remember the colors that I pulled out. And then got frustrated with. But for the sake of comparing different sepia options, I suppose it would be worth a minor amount of annoyance to finish the grave digger as well as his assistant. I mean, they won't go together, but they're not standing under the same light. They're both standing under different lights. Yeah, that's it. But I think it's helpful sometimes to see comparison. Things that are where the comparison isn't completely apples and oranges, where you have some things that are in similarity. Green User says imaginary. I see them all the time. Well, now you're convincing me to go hang out more in Arizona if I could see dragons all the time. I'm very excited that there's a board game coming out. So if any of you are board gamers, you probably heard of the game Wingspan. It's very big in the board game community. And you like have this habitat of birds and do things. Anyway, birds. Wingspan, birds. But the same company has developed a variation of the game called Wormspan that is dragons, and it changes the rules some in ways that seem interesting as well. But I'm very excited about that. Birds are okay. I have a lot of bird watching friends, and I'm like, okay, I'll play your bird game, but if you're gonna make that dragons, now I'm in. Now I'm all the way in. And I think that goes up for pre-order, not tomorrow, but the next day. And I'm excited about that. Also, it's the Year of the Dragon. I'm very excited about that. Are you excited, Julie? Are you celebrating Year of the Dragon? Are you talking Ron into making us a Year of the Dragon that Julie will make for us? I feel like we need one. I feel like we need a Reaper Year of the Dragon, which I believe it's the wood dragon this year. With the Asian element system is 5 elements. It includes metal as well as earth. Well, no, wood. It's wood, fire, metal, water, air, I think. Maybe. I do not remember now, but I know it's 5 things, and I know metal is one of the things, but this is the Year of the Wood Dragon. And I wasn't born in Year of the Dragon or anything. I just like dragons. I was born in Year of the Sheep/Goat, depending on which calendar you go with. But I'm prepared to add many interesting dragons to my collection this year. Not the Starbucks cup. Yeah, I had to act fast on that one, apparently. Or pay people dumb amounts of money on eBay, which I'm not willing to do. It was just like Arby's made a set of dice, and they had like their goofy hat, the goofy Arby's hat, inside the dice. I mean, a set of role-playing dice, not just 6-sided. But of course, all the eBay people snap them up within 5 seconds and then just put them on eBay. So instead of you could get a cute little set of Arby's dice for $12, you would have to pay like $50 or $60, and I don't care that much. And then the same thing happened with, they made a D20 dice or popcorn thing for when the D&D movie came out. And the eBay people all got that one pretty quick too. I know a few friends who actually did get one, but I'm sure not nearly as many people as wanted them. When we went to the theater, there was we just drove by the theater to ask, after we found out about it. And there was a string of nerds doing the same thing. We'd already seen the movie by then. I think we'd already seen it twice by then. Because we got to see it in early preview. But the poor beleaguered guy at the candy counter was like, no, we don't have it. Please go away, nerds. And then people were selling it for like crazy amounts of money on eBay. And then South America got an even better one because they got Timberchode's head as a popcorn bucket. Well, okay, I guess whether you think that's even better or not depends on whether you share my passion for Timberchode or not. And you might not. Alright, so just add a little bit to the straps here and there. But they're small and they're contrasted from whatever's underneath them, and that's close enough, really. We're trying to get this guy done. This spot's a little more prominent, so it's worth just a bit of effort. I hope it's putting something in focus other than his giant noggin. Alright. So now I think we're down to non-metallic metal, which is a pain in the butt. And one that I wish to make sure my paint is flowing suitably, because I can tell that it's getting a little gunky, despite this being a wet palette. And despite it being pretty damp here. That was the other thing that was weird, going from like super dry, cold winter weather to as soon as it warmed up, it's just been damp, rainy humidity since then. Like the kind where you just walk around and you can just feel the humidity all the time. It's not as bad today, but I've been feeling the humidity a lot lately. It was just a weird transition. I'm not complaining. It's better than having your skin dry up and fall off. But then is it? Yeah, it is. But somehow it doesn't make that much of a difference to the paint. At least on stream. I'm sure if I just, turn off the camera and started painting, the paint would be like, oh, I'll behave now. It doesn't matter now. But if you're at a convention or something in a class, your paint's gonna dry slow when you want it to dry fast, and dry fast when you want it to dry slow. It is the way of things. And we might need white, but I will wait. Wait on white. I lost my brush for a minute. So on the upside, it's mostly trim. On the downside, I still have to make choices. Let's get some kind of paint on before anything else. belt. So that's a, it's not the buckle exactly, it's the, like the loop. We'll say that's the buckle. Is it? Oh. You can see a little, well, I don't want to go too bright because this is not like super important focus area for this miniature. That might be too bright even. But I'll clean it up and we can decide later. Those are some very small bits of metal. Alright, so this is like kind of a half a sphere. So we would treat it like a sphere that we just can't see the back of. It'd be like a big point of light, and then it's gonna be darker where it's slipping away. And I'm generally not of the school of thought where I have to be like super sciencey about non-metallic metal. Hey, Great Mouser. Definitely kind of stick with the make it look cool school of thought, but thinking about your light source a little bit and trying to be consistent within one view angle of the miniature is not always a terrible thing. I may have thinned these paints down too much. At least just for the quick figuring out where things are staged. The sketching, I guess. That's what the cool kids call it these days, right? Walking in, sketching. And it's going to stay pretty blocky because this is not a miniature I'm doing to like a super high standard. I mean, I might go lighter still on the hot spot. I'm just trying to get the general idea of the light. Then where a bit of a transition will be. I'm not 100% sure what this isn't another rivet, it's like a tab. I don't know what that is exactly. I'm going to assume it's a piece of leather that is hanging out from under his shirt. So nobody else has any funny snow weather stories to tell? I'm sure that we are not the only people who had fun. I know you had some shipping stories. And I'm also sure that more of you probably have shipments that are trapped in the weirdness of things piling up. And then this is just, how many minutes, hours, days of my life would I like to spend trying to make this look smoother? And the answer, since I don't want to bore you all to death, is not too many. And I think, I'm not even sure if that's like a little mold line or it is I feel like it is a scratch. So give him a little scratch on the shoulder pad. I'm pretty sure this is not the first string brush. I'm not 100% sure. I'll just finish up the rivets while I'm here, which is kind of like how I did the fingernails. I'm going to put the darker part that goes around the edge on first and not worry about whether it's, I'm covering up the part that's not going to be dark eventually. And then I can kind of make this flatter. Actually, I wanted this color, sorry. It was just seeming kind of watery or something. And since it's flat, I don't know if you can kind of see that instead of, I go like this if I want to make it as pointy and round as I can. But if you kind of press it against something, you can make it where it's flat or flatter on. And then, so it's like a little spatula edge or something. And then instead of trying to dot the circle of the rivet, I'm just touching it down and lifting it up the top. And hopefully no paint is going to go along the sides then, because the brush bristles should be oriented such that only the upraised item is going to get any paint on it. You don't always have to flatten it out to that degree, but it can help. It's one of the ways you can use the sculpt to your advantage. That it makes it easier that we're painting 3D things where somebody has done all this nice sculpting work. Thank you, Bob and Julie and all the other sculptors. We appreciate you doing this for us. All right, so good enough for one thing. Is the hotspot not bright enough? I don't know. I don't want to make it too distracting from his face, his staring eyes. Isu Burden Chaos hot tub froze. Don't know the damage yet. Ooh, that sounds unfortunate. There was some base coat or sepia priming at the start. I had painted some of this previously, too. So I painted the skin, the coffin. It doesn't look like the wood's painted, but it is painted just a little, and I want it, or casket, want it pretty dark. And I feel like there was something else, but perhaps not. On another stream that you should be able to catch on Reaper's YouTube channel. It will have aired in early November. And you can't see this one from this side, so I don't have to really reference the light like super exactly or anything, because you can't see them both at the same time. I mean, I guess if I photograph them, then you'll be able to, but in terms of people looking at them in person, and even in photographs, if it's consistent within a view angle, I think a lot of times people will not notice if the light sort isn't exactly realistic, as long as it's consistent within itself and it generally looks cool. So I'm not saying don't learn the physics of light. I mean, go ahead if you want. I'm just saying that you don't necessarily need to do that to paint a metallic metal. The level of contrast is what makes more of a difference, and the way it'll work on the trim. Circles are a little, or spherical shapes are a little tougher because you don't have the light directly next to the dark. But for most non-metallic metal, that's actually the thing that it makes it convincing or cool looking, is that you have like a really high range of contrast and you have dark things in close proximity, dark sections that are in close proximity to light sections. That light next to dark is a huge part of what makes our brain go, oh, this thing is shiny. Let's see, because yeah, here on my brush, you can see there is a stripe that's close to white, and then there's a very dark gray stripe. And then there's an even darker stripe. And that type of alteration in proximity is a big part of how we recognize things as being made of metal. I don't know. Oh, look at this. I have a metal object on my desk for some reason. So, yeah, super white, darker, not as dark, super white. See, it doesn't look as shiny when I hold it in that angle, but when I put it here and you start getting those reflections and stuff, then it looks shinier. So people obsess way too much about the color. Is this color convincing gold? Is this color convincing steel or whatever? And it's like, in theory, you can paint non-metallic metal. Or, you know, shiny, chromeness, however you want to think about it. With any color you want. It's where you're putting the light and the dark that's really... And having extreme light and dark that is going to sell the effect. So even though this is monochromatic and I don't get to go pick out is this a great color for gold or steel or whatever, I decide that his, you know, maybe it'd be cool if his things were made of copper or something. But I don't get to decide that because all I have is the values. But lucky for me, that's all I need. Then I need it to be like kind of a little smoother, but not. It doesn't have to be super smooth. Metal can have a lot of, you know, different reflections that are breaking it up and stuff. It's kind of just getting that to the point where it looks at all convincingly like metal instead of just paint. And I know non-metallic metal is not to everyone's taste, and I have no problem with that. Here I have to do it because monochromatic. Since I don't think I have any metallics in this exact, you know, color space. But a lot of the rest of the time I do it because it was easier to learn to paint non-metallic than it was to learn how to photograph metallics. And take good pictures for Ron. And the pictures are a very important part of when I paint things for Ron, so... Just a little more variation down here. That's just a lot of one color of darkness. Green users. The best part of this job is seeing what you folks do with these things in colors. People do some pretty cool things. I enjoy those kinds of contests sometimes where everybody's painting the same figure and you can see like just the range of imagination and the visions that people have for interpreting it. I find that really interesting. People come up with this like super cool, wild stuff that I would never have dreamt of. Edging things can help with a sort of metal look too, because as we saw on this, the edges of things on metal things do typically catch the light a little bit differently. Alright, so now do the rivet thing. And if you think that I'm kind of putting off doing the trim, you're not entirely wrong. I just have to use the keep it cool principle, I think. And just find places where I can play with that contrast between where something light meets something dark. Oh, in case somebody came late, so this color, I think, is Muddy Soil, which is discontinued. But what I was trying to do was mix these together and create something that is Walnut Brown, which is a wonderful color that I just forgot to bring over with me. So you don't have to have any, you know, dark brown. You just get this color and mix some black in. You'll be fine. I do have a little bit of black that I'm using sparingly. Oh, I didn't put my swatch on there. I can turn that all day long and I'll never see that. And then I've got Barbarian Flesh, Golden Skin, Golden Blonde, and Blonde Highlight. Though I do think that I overcompensated for my original too cool sepia tone on this guy. I wanted to make it a little warmer, but I think I made it a lot warmer. So I don't know that I would pick this exact set of colors again. I would sit down and have another look through all my stuff and try to figure out a different answer again, I guess. So maybe next year's Halloween miniature will also have to be sepia toned so that one day I can crack this nut. Because I like the idea of it a lot. And there surely must be a couple other Victorian steampunk cowboy. I mean, there's a range of bigger topics that sepia would apply to, I think. I think I like my ghosts a little more, you know, glowy green or blue or something. Now, in theory, I would paint this kind of fine detail with a smaller brush, because I'm not one of those people who says you should be able to paint everything with a size 4 brush or you don't know what you're doing. If a smaller brush makes your life easier, go for it. Where it is good to push yourself on the brush thing is, you know, when you're painting bigger surfaces, you can get through it a lot quicker if you have a bigger brush, so it's worth trying. But when you're painting a little detail, if a smaller brush works for you, then rock on, whatever works. But I figure it's a good exercise for me to practice, and so I will do it and probably fail for your amusement. We need a bit of black here, since there's a lot of darkness. And the only way to get more dark than the darkness is black. Or, I mean, I would obviously be using blue liner if I was painting in full color, because if you've been here before, you know how much I love blue liner for this kind of thing. Because a little bit of blue in something, I think, actually does feel darker than black to us. Because blue is a cool color, we tend to perceive it as receding. But blue is not an option here. It may be how I try to fix the... This is too orangey. Oh no, Pendrake, did you miss your package? They won't just leave it if you don't get the door. They will leave ours. We have a wonderful blurry picture of delivery of my broken up box. Like, you can even tell in this terrible blurry picture that the box is messed up. So I will be keeping that picture in case Amazon or UPS disagrees with me about things having fallen out of the box. back to the darkness out there. Oh, trying to send out outgoing mail. Oh, that's a different problem. Can you guys see the little white spot in his armpit? Dang it, I hate when that happens. Because you know, if you took a picture of him, that is the exact spot that would show up in a photograph. That's how that works. Alright, back to fun with non-metallic metal. Trim is a little harder to just go like completely sketchy on and then smooth out. But in some ways, I actually recommend small stuff like this if you're just starting to paint non-metallic metal. Get someone that doesn't have like, you know, they're not wearing big plates of armor and stuff like that. They've got like necklaces or chains or something like that. These little small areas I find are more forgiving in the sense that you don't have to make really pretty transitions because it's small enough that people's eyes will kind of fill it in, so you can practice getting that higher contrast that you need without having to worry about the part where it looks kind of patchy and inexpertly painted or whatever. At least it worked that way for me, that I had a lot more success doing jewelry and accessories and stuff. And then I had to work out how to do it at larger scales. Or, you know, larger items like the pads and whatnot. So we'll just go straight to that one. And I will often skip steps when I'm working on the smaller stuff. I have the steps to make things smooth. It's often not necessary for areas that are smaller. I think I just need to get, you know, paint on this part. It doesn't hardly have a full coat of paint, so you can kind of see the gray underneath. I guess you started out ready for black and white rather than sepia. So I'm kind of focusing on points and like little corners are often where smaller, more detailed stuff like this will catch a lot of light. I've not been working on the lock, alas. And then corners are good places as well. And edges, like in an ideal world, I would want to catch that whole upper edge. This may not be an ideal world. Not necessarily with the lightest color, but probably a color lighter than that. I mean, it's got some issues, but. Mini Mad Cat raiding with a party of 20. Hello, raiders. Mini Mad Cat. I'm just trying to finish up this kind of sepia tone. Well, he comes in a pack with this guy. I think it's like Gravedigger and Assistant, but the coffin carrier, the guy who has to do all the hard parts. And I'm just trying to, since to do a monochromatic miniature, you're working just with value. I'm trying to create the appearance of non-metallic metal using the same colors I used on the rest of the figure. So I have to really focus on doing the idea of the reflections with the lighter color and then more shadowy areas with darker colors. Since I can't, oh, I guess I forgot that ledge. Just go grab some steel or something, because it wouldn't be the right color to match. I guess if I were smart, I could have tried to find a copper or bronze or something that I thought kind of fit the sepia tone idea, and then picked out the matte paints to match that. Maybe I'll try that one day. Because I don't know, could you do a monochrome scheme using metallics? I have not tried it. I don't know if I could. Someone probably could, but could I? That I don't know. Yes, I went over my highlights a little bit. Sometimes, we were talking about that earlier, how you can, sometimes your willingness to go back and work on bits again or refine them is kind of, the patience to do that is one of the things that the painters you admire might be doing that you hadn't thought about. I know it was a big mental jump for me, because I used to be like, when a miniature was done, it was done. I put it in my cabinet, the end. And I would say that like right when I was finished painting, instead of, like how I like to do now, is I have a shelf where I keep things while they're in progress, or if I've just finished them recently and I pass by that shelf a few times a day, and it gives me a chance to kind of look at them and think about, is there anything that bothers me? Can I tell what's going on with the miniature if I'm looking at it from a distance instead of, right here in front of my face? Because that's a very different point of view sometimes. And it gives me a chance to study it when I'm in, I think there's kind of a difference between looking mode and painting mode. So you as a viewer, even on your own miniatures, you're going to see things a little bit differently than when you're sitting there painting them. So having that space of both time and literal distance can help you spot stuff that maybe isn't working amazing and give you a chance to fix it. Or things that are working, but maybe you just need to do a little more of that or something. So when you have things that are square, which I definitely do not have an example of something square that's metal that happens to be on my desk, the edges are still kind of like that circle we were looking at before now. Well, disc, I should say. My little disc you're looking at. So that's why it's often helpful to do some light edges on metal because it'll catch the light like that. The Mad Mini Cat looks like he's carried a lot of coffins today. He does look tired, doesn't he? He's like, oh my gosh, really? Again, I just want to go home and chew on some rat's tails or something. Boss, why are you making it so hard? We've all been there, I think. This is where I'm going to be sad I don't have my smaller brush. There's like a little tiny keyhole here. So I decided to go ahead and have this corner be the lighter on both of these faces. It would be a valid choice to do it the other way. More contrast in a way, but I think it's really gonna make the corner sharp. Give it some, this is the back view. I'm not worried about competing with the face, so I don't mind having another something that grabs your attention back here. And that can kind of be the coffininess of the coffin, I guess. The Mini Mad Cat says the face is wonderful. The sculpt is very fun, and I had fun kind of making him look all haggard, and he may not be. He may be a little bit from the factory floor instead of produced by nature. His boss might have some hobbies, and he might be one of them. Oops. That was a lot of that, but we'll take it back. Just kind of blend it in a little. But that would look really bad if it had been, that. So that's one of the reasons I suggest this kind of thing. Although something a little less, symmetrically, evenly placed. Something more like necklaces and belt buckles and stuff like that can be nice for starting to practice non-metallic metal if you want to try that. And those are also the kind of surfaces I find that don't look great with metallics, like little tiny things, because metallic paints are thicker and the reflections you're going to get aren't going to be quite as subtle and stuff. If you've got like a figure that only has, that doesn't have like a sword or armor and stuff, and like a lot of wizards or those kinds of characters will just have some jewelry or trim or whatever. Those are good ones for practicing non-metallic metal. I went through a period where I didn't paint anybody that was wearing armor. Queenie says, time check, no rush. I mean, you know, you've seen me paint this part, so I guess I could try to finish the rest of the trim on my own, and then we will be able to see if we can tweak the colors, because, you know, so there's a sepia tone I thought was a little too cold, and he's also not done, but because could I do my tweaking with that? Well, maybe we'll have to come back to this guy so that we can have a whole show of tweaking. I mean, you need to have 2 hours worth of things to tweak, so I probably do need more than 2. But this guy's a little too orangey, brown, warm. So what I really want is if I could, you know, merge them together, it would probably be the exact sepia tone that I'm looking for. But since I can't do that, how else can I use paint to do that for me, in a way? Without having to repaint everything, without me having to go, okay, now I finally have the perfect set of browns, let's paint these guys again. And I also want to see if I can find a way to nudge this color a little more naturalistic. There's no way to fix this. We're painting over that later. But is this color scheme viable for something I want to look a little more naturalistic? So I still want them to have like a cool, fantastical color, but that one I'm just not 100% sold. But before I just start painting over it sometime, I want to try tweaking it and show you all how I do the tweaking, because I find the tweaking fun too, actually, the messing around with color and kind of customizing things and unifying them and stuff. I actually find that part to be kind of fun, and it's not super lengthy as a rule. But anyway, we are slightly past time. I'm gonna let you all go. I'm sure that Quindy will find a raid for us so we can continue to enjoy hobby related or hobby adjacent type of streams. Let's see, she's sharing links to my stuff, and then I'm sure that she will either share the Reaper things, or if you scroll back just a little bit in the chat, there will be some links to Reaper's other, like you can watch these videos for a while on Twitch, and paints every day. I paint on Mondays, Luca paints on Wednesdays, and then there's some Reaper shows where you get to know more about the community or more about the products that are coming up and stuff, and those are available on Twitch, like the past few months worth of them, but you can go on to YouTube and watch like all the way back in time. Ouvert le feu. Thank you. So I don't see a raid yet, but I'll keep vamping. There, she's sharing the YouTube channel, which if you are watching this later and you can't see the chat, just type Reaper Miniatures in YouTube, and the first channel that comes up should be the one you're looking for. There will, of course, be lots of other videos by people talking about Reaper Miniatures and stuff, but they have their own channel as well. We are going to raid Brannigan's Brushes, and I hope that you'll say hi and spread the Reaper love, and I'll see you here next week. Bye, everybody.